Okay, here is part two for my Autopilot series, where we continue to build a skeleton and a framework to help you craft the autopilot skill or the muscle memory required to improvise with one hand over a steady groove in the other. Level 2 involves now a little bit more motion in the right hand. So far, all we've done is a single note with a quarter note pulse. Well, we're going to keep the quarter note pulse because, in my opinion, the hardest part of this whole thing is changing rhythms, not actually changing notes. But we're going to start to change the notes now. That's the next level. So we're going to take the same exercises, the same ratio exercises of, a number of notes in the right hand over a number of notes in the left hand. And in our left hand, we're going to start putting in arpeggios and simple walking cells. Now, I'll take a moment to ask you to pause, and if you haven't familiarized yourself with my concepts of cell bass, which is a walking bass concept, stop here and go check out my walking bass, my cell bass video. Okay, so we've got level 2. So now I'm going to start doing some simple arpeggios, right? Same exercises. Or we could do eighth notes. Or triplets. So on and so forth. Basically the same exercises. And we're going to take a handful of arpeggios and do that. In this particular video, I'm going to alternate between an A minor and an E minor in first inversion. Again, this is something that requires some previous knowledge, so I would recommend checking out the basic chord shapes and their inversions video, if you haven't already. So my previous example was an A minor arpeggio. We're going to do the same thing with an E minor in first inversion arpeggio. So on and so forth. Let's take the same concept as the arpeggios and apply it to some simple walking cells. So the walking cell, the first one that I'm going to show, is an ascending cell in A minor. I kind of condensed two rhythms in there, but you get the idea, right? And what's neat about that is kind of hearing the notes as they go with each other. There was a moment of unison in there, and then there was a moment, I think, of parallel fifths. At least that's what it sounded like to me. Could have been parallel fourths. Who knows? I mean, I probably should know, but whatever. We're going to do the same thing now with a descending E minor walk. Now again, I've included two types of arpeggios, an A minor arpeggio and an E minor arpeggio in first inversion, and two types of walks, an A minor ascending walk and an E minor descending walk. Obviously, when you're practicing this, there are many more possibilities to do, and I recommend exploring beyond just these two possibilities. I'm just providing these as the examples. And don't forget, take each one of those on their own and give yourself a fluency check. putting the fluency check all into one thing, but you know, I really do recommend that you spend time fluency checking each individual arpeggio and walk. Now, I'm going to call this level 2.5 because it's still kind of part of level 2. But what we're going to do is we're going to start putting these together, combining our arpeggios and our walks, still keeping that quarter note rhythm, and doing the same rhythmic exercises in our right hand. And kind of leading into the next topic, you know, I fluency checked those together, as I said. The next step, level 2.5, is to take those chord progression, or those chord arpeggios and those walks, and kind of put them into one longer pattern over the course of several bars that will, and then again do those rhythmic patterns. So if I were to go back and forth between the A minor and the E minor chord, it sounds something like this. And with the exercise, the rhythmic exercise over it. And of course, do the same thing with your walks. Obviously, I still recommend doing all of the different rhythms that you practiced in level 1. I just happen to not want to spend 45 minutes, you know, in the final version of this video, having it be 45 minutes long with me showing each individual rhythm over each exercise. I'll leave that up to you to kind of put together. The last step of level 2 is to now combine the arpeggios and the walks. So here's an A minor arpeggio into an A minor walk, into an E minor, into the E minor walk down, into the E minor arpeggio. So that's the pattern as a whole. Now I'm going to put the quarter note rhythmic exercise over it. This is where it really starts to get tricky. The more you have to do in your left hand, the harder this stuff is going to be. And of course, like you would between every step of the way, fluency check. Alright, so far we've got steady quarter notes and some motion in our left hand. I recommend trying this stuff for every arpeggio and every walking cell that you can possibly think up. You know, the bigger your library and the bigger, you know, the more shapes and motion that you have just totally locked in, the more freedom you're going to have. And again, you know, I only did like quarter notes and eighth notes, but that's just for the sake of brevity on this video. Otherwise, it would have been a 45-minute video of me showing every rhythm. But the concepts are all the same. And, you know, this again, I'll say it again, the same with rests, right? Build your rests into these exercises. Build them, if you're doing eighth notes, build them on the on beat and only play on the off beat. If you're doing 16th notes, build them on the on beat and the and of the beat and only play on the E and the of the beat, right? Cycle through and try out each different location for rests. It's all the same concept of just getting comfortable with these rhythms over motion in your left hand to the point where you just don't even have to think about it. So here's for part 2.
In the next video will be level 3, and that will be kind of the last bit of this skeletal framework concept stuff. So thanks for watching. I'll see you then.